Hello everyone, we're on chapter 5 and I'm going to get started with paragraph 8. One of the most important questions for an adherent of transcendental realism would have to be, how does the ego produce the world of mental pictures out of itself? A world of mental pictures which was given to us and which disappeared as soon as we shut our senses to the external world might kindle as earnest desire for knowledge, insofar as it was a means of investigating indirectly the world of the I in itself. If the things of our experience were mental pictures, then our everyday life would be like a dream, and the discovery of the true state of affairs would be like waking. Now our dream images interest us as long as we dream, and consequently do not detect their dream character. But as soon as we wake, we no longer look for the inner connections of our dream images among themselves, but rather for the physiological, and psychological processes which underlie them. In the same way, a philosopher who holds the world to be his mental picture cannot be interested in the mutual relations of the details within the picture. If he allows for the existence of a real ego at all, then his question will be not how one of his mental pictures is linked with another, but what takes place in the independently existing soul while a certain train of mental pictures passes through his consciousness. If I dream that I am drinking wine which makes my throat dry, and then wake up with a cough, I cease the moment I wake to be interested in the progress of the dream for its own sake. My attention is now concerned only with the physiological and psychological processes by means of which the irritation which causes me to cough comes to be symbolically expressed in the dream picture. Similarly, once the philosopher is convinced that the given world consists of nothing but mental pictures, his interest is bound to switch at once from this world to the real soul which lies behind. The matter is more serious, however, for the adherent of illusionism, who denies altogether the existence of an ego in itself behind the mental pictures, or at least holds this ego to be unknowable. We might very easily be led to such a view by the observation that in contrast to dreaming, there is indeed the waking state in which we have the opportunity of seeing through our dreams and referring them to the real relations of things, but that there is no state of the self, which is related similarly to our waking conscious life. Whoever takes this view fails to see that there is, in fact, something which is related to mere perceiving in the way that our thinking experience is related to our dreaming. This something is thinking. And the summary for paragraph 8, we have two of them. The first one is, philosophers need to direct their interest from the world of mental pictures to the world that lies behind it. They need to see that thinking relates to perception as experience in a waking state relates to dreaming. And the second one is, thinking relates to perception as experiences in the waking state relate to dreaming. Okay, so this paragraph is pretty big. What Steiner is talking about is, if we're going to use dream as a metaphor for how we interpret things, when you wake up from the dream, you don't particularly care about, as he says here, the dream only interests us as long as we are dreaming, and then once you wake up, you're looking for the processes that underlie them, which is true if you think about it. I mean, when you dream, you try and make sense of it when you're awake and whatnot, and you try and look for what it could mean in your personal life or psychologically and whatnot. And so for the transcendental realists, their question originally is, how does the ego produce the world of mental pictures out of itself? But Steiner is arguing, well, that's not really important, because in reality, if you dream, you're not so much concerned with the dreams. You're concerned with other things. And so the question should be not how one of your mental pictures is linked with one another, but what takes place in the independently existing soul while a certain train of mental pictures passes through his consciousness. The question for the transcendental realist is not to be so concerned with the world of mental pictures, but the world that lies behind it. And Steiner uses, again, he uses it as a metaphor. So, you know, once you wake up from your dream, you're not interested in the details, so you can liken mental pictures as being in a dream state. And so what you're concerned about is when you wake up. And so you have to realize, for these people, they have to realize that, well, the mental picture is really just the details. It's like a dream. So you have to step back and look at what it is when you're in the awake state. And for the what was it? The illusionists, absolute illusionists, they deny the existence of an ego, and hold that it's unknowable. And so here Steiner is starting to point out that thinking is that something that can take us from this dream state to a waking state. So it's a pretty long paragraph, but it really is kind of straightforward, because he's just basically saying, you know, you shouldn't be too concerned with investigating the world of mental pictures if it's equal to being in a dream state. What you need to do is look behind that and find out, you know, what is related to that. And he's starting to point out that thinking is sort of that thing that can take us from this dream state to this awake state. And I'm going to go on to paragraph 9. The naive man cannot be charged with the lack of insight referred to here. He accepts life as it is and regards things as real, just as they present themselves to him in experience. The first step, however, which we take beyond this standpoint, can be only this, that we ask how thinking is related to percept. It makes no difference whether or not the percept, in the shape given to me, exists continuously before and after my forming a mental picture. If I want to assert anything whatever about it, I can do so only with the help of thinking. If I assert that the world is my mental picture, I have enunciated the result of an act of thinking, and if my thinking is not applicable to the world, then this result is false. Between a percept and every kind of assertion about it, there intervenes thinking. And the summary we have for 9 is, thinking is required in order to make a statement about a percept. And again, when it comes to what did he say? Yes, so the question that Steiner's point out that is important is, how is thinking related to percept? He's mentioned this earlier in chapter 3. And again, he's arguing that it doesn't make any difference whether or not, like, it doesn't matter how we get this percept, it doesn't matter if it exists continuously before and after my forming of a mental picture, as was mentioned by George Berkeley. He mentioned about this back in paragraph 3 or 4, I believe. It doesn't matter if the percept exists continuously or not. And what matters is that when you form a mental picture, you're doing so with the help of thinking. So again, thinking is the starting point. Thinking produces mental pictures. And so if you just say the world is my mental picture, then you're just totally denying the reality that thinking is producing the mental pictures. So that's all for today, and I look forward to seeing you guys again. See you later.